Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I am David Safransky. This is Financial Revelations. I am your host, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today, so I got to get moving because I'm told I only have a few minutes. I'm the boss, so I can do anything I want, but I like to follow instructions too. You can reach me at 1-800-344-2534. Anytime you can call there. You can also hear me Thursday mornings on WCRF 103.3 in Cleveland. They also use the Moody app. You can find us that way and listen anytime, and I think there's recorded shows on there too. But that's at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Every Thursday morning. And if you have questions, you could always text Corey, and that is Corey at epsf.com. And don't worry, you don't have to write it down right now because it's scrolling on the bottom. But if you're listening to the podcast, it is Corey, K-O-R-Y, at epsf.com. Well, last week the Fed raised rates on Wednesday, and then just a couple of days later, the jobs number came out, and it was as hot as lava. I mean, people were expecting 200,000 jobs. It came out at like 540,000 jobs for January. Way too hot, way too high. And I think what happened was the Fed is trying to appease the stock market because remember, I believe that they're going to a reset rate where they're going to reset anything that's interest rate sensitive. And they've already reset the stock market. So they don't want too much more reset in the stock market happening, or they will drive us into a definitive recession. But I think what happened is by the Fed going 25 basis points in their rate hike on Wednesday of last week, they really are now keeping themselves in the market longer and maybe even a little bit higher. So we could be going through rate hikes now through June, July, August, 25 at a time, because the Fed, to maintain credibility, will not probably go back to 50 basis points. They could, but it's highly unlikely. So, and they don't want to crush everybody's spirits. They just want things to slow down so that reset rate is going to reset the housing market, the car market, the employment market. They've already reset the stock market. Anything with an interest rate attached where they could slow demand because they're raising the cost of money, that's going to slow down. They're going to reset those markets. So that's coming. Be ready for it. If you're buying a house, mortgage rates are higher, 6.2 or so this morning, and that's probably going to go a little bit higher. So, but prices will come down. So if you have cash to put down, you're really in a good spot, because when mortgages get more expensive, prices have to reset a little bit. They go down. There are some bullish signs in the market. We're going to put up a chart of the S&P 500 from January 1st until yesterday morning, and you can see that the market definitely has moved higher. We went over this in our quick hits, and we're going to be doing these quick hits weekly. Just a couple of minutes, maybe 1 minute of something that I'm thinking about, came across my desk, my computer screen, my thought process, which is never ending, goes 24 hours a day. I don't sleep an entire night. I know a few people are like this, where they wake up in the middle of the night, they jot down some thoughts. I'm not writing down my dreams, don't worry. But I do have thoughts, and sometimes we'll do a quick hit on that. Something just comes to me in the middle of the night. My dogs, TJ and Max, are still kind of restless, so they wake me up. But if we do have one of those thoughts, we'll put them on like a quick hit, and it'll only be a minute or two long. But we did that this week about the Santa Claus rally was positive. The first 5 days of January were positive, and January was positive 90% of the time. Then you get a positive year when those three things happen, and it's very difficult to string together two horrific years like we had last year. But I want you to know it's okay to be a cautious investor. When we talk to our neighbors and our friends about their investing, I want you to change investing to fish. And if you talk to fishermen, they've always caught the biggest fish. Investing is a lot like fishing in this. When people talk about what they've done, they really don't talk about their failures. They talk about their successes. But it is okay to be cautious. It is okay to put money to work slowly. I talked to somebody this morning, and he said, well, somebody recommended that we do it over 12 months. Well, that doesn't give me heartburn. I kind of like that, actually. I don't need to put money to work all at one time. And when somebody if you're talking to an advisor, a person in finance who says, we got to get this money in the market right now, unless there's been some type of exogenous event that has created a big drop in the market, I don't mind moving slowly. I don't mind putting some work or some money to work in what I call a program trade, where each month or quarter or whatever your time frame is that you pick, you put a percentage of that money to work. Now, let's say that you're putting that money to work over this time frame and something really nasty happens in the market and it creates a 10% drop. I would hurry up in that case. I would run towards that fire and put some more money to work. If it falls another 10%, I would do the same thing. So it's also okay to not be an aggressive investor. I hear this a lot in my office where people say, well, I know I should be. Well, no, that's not true. Look, embrace who you are and the amount of risk that you're willing to take. It's nobody else's business. You don't have to share at a cocktail party that you're a little bit more conservative of an investor. You can if you want, of course, but it's none of my business. Well, unless you're investing with me, then it is totally my business. But it's nobody else's business, and you should invest the way that you want to invest. For instance, if your money's in the market in a place where it's causing you to lose sleep, you're probably too aggressive. And I would realign my priorities with my investing and make sure that my investing reflects those things. Because, yes, over time, will you earn less money? Probably, most likely. It's also okay if you are an aggressive investor. But what I want you to avoid is I want you to avoid taking unnecessary and silly risks. There's things that people want to do that are just unnecessary. You don't have to take that level of risk. You're probably not going to get rewarded. I don't like boom and bust investing. I like to be a little bit more mathematical about it and a little bit more focused and calculating. I just don't want to take silly risks. I don't do it in my own personal investing, and I probably am a more aggressive investor than most because I understand the markets and I understand the time that the longer you invest, the less aggressive your investing becomes. There's never been a 20-year period of time where the market's lost money, ever, not once. You can include the Great Depression in there, never, not once. 2008, never, not once. So, but there have been 5-year periods of time that have lost money. There's certainly been tons of 1-year periods of time. So if somebody says, hey, I'm buying a house in a year, what should I invest in? Cash, a CD, a bond, something that is guaranteed. That's what I would do. And I wanted to talk about the State of the Union address today, too, because it was a big deal. There's talk that President Biden is going to run again for president. And so this State of the Union was particularly important. It was the first State of the Union with the Republican House. The Republican House essentially ends the Biden presidency outside of executive orders and things like that. They're right before the Republican Congress or the Republican House came in, they did pass a big budget bill thanks to the Republican Senate, which went along with it. I thought that was a mistake because it took away a lot of the negotiation. And maybe that's what they wanted. They just wanted to get a clean bill out, and I personally would not have done that. But what's my impression of the State of the Union? I'll be honest with you, I did not watch it. I just went to bed. I went to bed early and read, but I did read a lot about it, and it's totally detached from reality. And I think in a lot of ways the president is too. I think he's trying to satisfy an extremely liberal base that is probably 15% of the electorate. These are not the people that are going to get him reelected if he does run again. It's a laundry list of political wishes that are never going to happen. Some of the things that he talked about in the State of the Union address, he wanted to do when the Democrats controlled all three branches of government. Well, the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So They controlled those three branches. And they didn't happen then. So they're certainly not going to happen under a Republican House. And he talked a lot about the Republicans' desire to gut Medicare and Social Security, and that's just not true. There's nobody that I know that wants to gut any of those programs. And what people are talking about, though, is changing the age the age where you could get a full Social Security benefit, because people are living longer and they're working longer. There is some talk of means testing for the wealthiest of Americans. I think the thing to do might be, if you're at a certain age at full retirement benefit and you're making a certain amount of money, I just give them their money back. What's wrong with that? They put in some money. You're going to give them back uninflated dollars. Well, inflated dollars in the sense that you're not going to give them back the growth portion. What if they live to be 95, they're worth $100 million, and they're collecting a Social Security benefit? Just seems a little odd. But they did pay into it, and it is a system that they paid into. Just give them their money back. It would cost a lot less in the long run for Social Security. Just give them back what they paid in. I don't have a problem with that. I think the State of the Union is also kind of a launching off point for the Biden re-election campaign, of which the Republicans are overjoyed. He's got to be the oldest person running for president. If he were to get elected, he would be the oldest president ever. And there is a lot of talk about his capacity seems to be diminished. I think no one would argue that he doesn't have his fastball. But that's my impression of the State of the Union address. It's just really not a realistic approach to governing, and none of it's going to happen, or very, very little of it's going to happen. And the Republicans would have to agree, and that's highly unlikely. Now, in the president's defense, I don't want to be, you may have guessed I'm probably not his voter. But in his defense, this is not an unusual speech for a president. If you remember, Bill Clinton would talk for like 2 hours during the State of the Union address. There's only a couple things that I ever remember from the State of the Union address. One is one of the things that Bill Clinton said, which was, "I feel your pain." He was very good at kind of empathizing with people. And then one of George Bush's State of the Union addresses, where he mentioned the axis of evil, which still exists today and is still talked about today. So those are the only two things that I really remember from State of the Union. I don't think anybody's going to remember anything from this State of the Union. And that's also, in Joe Biden's defense, is not uncommon, because these tend to be laundry lists of things that they'd like to do. I think in one of Joe Biden's previous State of the Union addresses, he talked about curing cancer. Well, that'd be great if we could do it. I don't know. We spend a lot of money on research. Drug companies are probably more interested in drugs that would treat cancer than they are curing cancer, because that kind of takes them out of their business. But that's my opinion on the State of the Union. Not really that impactful to anybody listening to this. So, you could also see us on Twitter at SkiBucks1. I happen to like Twitter because of the news that gets broken on there. If you're not careful, though, it's more of an echo chamber for what you already think. So I do this. It drives me crazy sometimes, but I'll follow people that I patently disagree with. I like to, if I could hear a discussion between two people, and I just did hear this recently, found it on Twitter, between two people who are diametrically opposed politically, socially, they think very, very differently. And they were able to have a pretty good discussion about why they feel, why they think the way they do and how they differ. And it was respectful, which I like. Today, you see a lot of people shouting each other down. And this is what I hate about college campuses today, is they used to be bastions of free speech. Now they're bastions of shutting down speech. They don't want free speech. If you disagree with somebody on a college campus, you're automatically proclaimed to be Hitler. I don't think anybody should be compared to Hitler. I think Hitler was unique. And so when you compare somebody to that, I think you've lost the argument. And there's a lot of things like that are going on. So they're not really interested in free speech on college campuses today. I'd be very careful where I sent my kid to college today. I'd want to make sure that it is not one of these places where if you're a conservative, you're going to get shut down. So they're really bastions of censorship. And that's disturbing to me because this is where a lot of our free thought has come from in the past. Oberlin College, just here in Oberlin, was the home of the Vietnam anti-Vietnam movement. General Schwarzkopf's sister went there, and she was heavily involved while he was there fighting. And so you see a lot of unusual thought come out of college campuses. Now it's just predictable. So I don't want to be censored, and I don't want to be a proponent of censorship, even if I disagree with you. In fact, free speech is all about protecting the speech that you find most vile. That's free speech. And if you can't get along with that, then you don't understand the Constitution. I do understand free speech because I am a real American. I'm David Safransky, and the voice you could trust.